drunk and took some Valiums, ended up smashing the whole house. You know, and don't even remember why. I can't even tell you how I was feeling that day because I don't remember. All I remember is waking up and looking down, a bunch of guns pointed at me, telling me to kneel. There was no place to kneel. Everything was smashed. Holes in the wall, windows busted out, TV, furniture, refrigerator, stove, all the dishes, all the crystal, everything smashed. Everything.
This is The Bottom Line. I'm Gary Thiemann in Los Angeles. The feeling of not feeling in can be a devastating experience for a child, not to mention adult. But for the adult, that feeling can be often buried by drugs and alcohol. An all too familiar false perception of reality. Guy explains.
My name's Guy. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. God, my first high was prescription medication. The doctor was giving me uppers and downers for things that were happening in school. You know, I was slow in school, and they had me over hyper, and so the doctor gave me something to speed me up, and he gave me something to put me to sleep at night, and you know, and I just started taking that stuff, and it started driving me crazy. And by the age of 13, you know, I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't take it. I was so confused, and my insides were like, God, they just wanted to explode. I can't explain it, man. It was just so much pain. I was tired of it, man, so I took them all. You know, and it was quite a high. You know, they had I remember fighting, and they had to tie me down when they brought me to the hospital, because they brought me into the psycho ward, and I didn't want to be there, and I started fighting, and it took quite a few of them to put me down, and they strapped me down into a bed, and it was in the middle of a room, and there was a light straight overhead, and man, I was seeing colors and things I'd never seen before. You know, and I don't remember too much after that. It's just kind of went blank for a while. And I remember waking up the next day and watching these trees and stuff grow out of the floor, you know, and they took me out of that little room and tied me down into this little chair, and you know, and I was getting upset because I couldn't find my cigarette, and I thought the place was going to burn down, you know, and I just kept telling them this place is going to burn down, you know. I see fire, I see smoke, and I was just real panicked, real scared. I just wanted to be out of there. You know, and they took me back in that little room and tied me down in that little bed with light overhead and left the light on. They did that for about 3 days. And they changed the psychiatrist I had and got me another one and didn't want me to have me on medication at all, and my head cleared up a little bit. And it was all right. He talked to me, and started going to aftercare after that, you know, and it was with a bunch of older kids, you know. I was 13 and all the other kids were 16, 17, 18 years old, you know, and they knew a little bit more than I did. And some friends had some little white pills with crosses on them, you know, and told me this was speed, and I took the whole roll, and I was up for a while, and I liked the way they made me feel. Everybody else was doing it, you know, and I started having friends, and people started accepting me, you know, because being in those classes, you know, people don't want to be around you, man. People call you stupid and dumb. And I was never part of. I was always the outsider looking in. And it hurt. Man, it hurt. Just wanted to play with people and wanted to be around them. Started getting into this stuff, and I started having a lot of friends, you know. People accepted me for who I was. That's what I thought. I remember sitting in a house with a bunch of people, and we ended up putting a bunch of zigzags together, one right after another, and making a humongous joint. That was my first joint. It must have been about 4 joints long, and I remember smoking that, and I remember just feeling a rush and laying on a couch and having a hard time breathing and feeling kind of sick, and saying, "No, I really didn't like this," but the next high was better. You know, it wasn't like that. Nothing like was the first time. You know, I had a bunch of friends, I thought, and people were around me. The problem was when I didn't have the drugs or the alcohol or the dope, you know, they weren't around. The bottom line is, about 6 months later, I went out and got drunk again. Did the exact same thing. Got real drunk, got real sick, and swore I'd never do that again. I never could just drink a little bit. I never could do a little bit of anything. I ended up getting in a relationship, you know, and I bought all the drugs and she took care of the rest. And I did what I wanted to do. I went out with who I wanted to do and did what I wanted to do and left her home with all the responsibilities of taking care of me in the house and all that other stuff, you know. And I'd take off, you know. And when me and her went to a party one time, and I ended up getting drunk like I always did, you know. And I guess she got mad and she left. I just stayed drinking, you know, and went into a blackout like I always did, you know. And I woke up and was with some woman who was at the party, and went outside to find my car, and you know, and I couldn't recognize nothing. I couldn't recognize none of the area at all. And I went back in the house. I said, "Where am I?" You know, and he says, "You're in El Paso." I was kind of upset about that. I did love her, and I loved her a lot. She put up with me as long as she could, and found somebody else, and that hurt a lot. Boy, I really started drinking and using then. At least one thing about drinking, it might have made me sicker, man. It sure killed the pain. I ended up meeting another woman, living with her for a while. And we ended up, she ended up getting pregnant. We ended up getting married. And had a beautiful daughter. You know, my disease regressed so much that she'd buy pounds and just make sure I always had my dope. And I wasn't drinking a lot. She didn't like me when I was drinking. I was causing trouble. You know, one time I went out and got drunk and took some Valiums, ended up smashing the whole house. You know, and don't even remember why. I can't even tell you how I was feeling that day because I don't remember. All I remember is waking up, looking down, a bunch of guns pointed at me, telling me to kneel. There was no place to kneel. Everything was smashed. Holes in the wall, windows busted out, TV, furniture, refrigerator, stove, all the dishes, all the crystal, everything smashed. Everything. I remember sitting down there in the police station and that woman coming down there saying she's going to bail me out. I looked at her and I told her, no, I deserve to be in here. I can't go. And I turned it down and I stayed in prison. Or jail. It wasn't prison, it was jail. Man, I just had to use. And I had to keep using over and over and over again. Man, I felt so helpless. Sorry. I don't want to ever feel that way again. Man, I tried killing myself. Just never worked. Drugs won't kill me, man. Just kept me going. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a God thing or anything. And I ended up living back home with my dad and my mom. They had a trailer in the backyard, and they lived in the house, and I lived in the trailer. Talk about being lonely. Parents didn't even want you in their own house. Neighbors were so afraid of me, they wouldn't even call the cops. Man, I used to get drunk, run around naked out in the front yard. I remember sitting in that trailer for hours, staring at those tiny little four walls. Man, it was a small trailer. It wasn't very big. You know, and I'd pick my daughter up on weekends, and she'd end up putting me to bed because I'd pass out. Then they ended up going to the rehab, state rehab, and they ended up getting me a job at Los Angeles Times. And my mother had just died. And ran out of drugs, I ran out of money, and I was sober, and I was there when she died. I was able to talk to her and communicate. Thank God for that. She ended up dying. Part of it was because the stress of watching me go through what I was going through, and she knew I was in so much pain. Got this job and met a girl, and she turned me on to freebasing cocaine. Oh, man. Talk about acceleration, man. I'd sit up all night freebasing when I had money. I'd get paid on Wednesday and be broke by Thursday. Man, I wasn't much of a father to my daughter. And 2 years went by, man. I can't even tell you what happened those 2 years, man. It was living hell. I ended up being real sick. I started drinking heavier than I ever drank in my entire life. You know, it was when I woke up to when I went to bed, you know, just constant. Finally made a decision that I wasn't going to live this way no more. I just wasn't going to do it. And in the house, I got my dad's shotgun, and my dad told me, you know, that I could take the shotgun. But before I took it, I had something he was going to tell me, and that I was no good father, that my daughter needed a father, and if I was going to be the way that I was, that go ahead and blow out my brains, because I was worthless. You know, and I went in there and I stuck that gun in my mouth, and I was going to pull that trigger, you know, and those words just kept going through my head. You know, I had a daughter. I had to try, man. I never tried anything else in my life. Never tried to get help. Just tried to do it on my own. So something clicked that day. I don't know what it was. I put the gun down, and next day I went out there and I asked my dad to help me, to get help.
Once Guy admitted he was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and that his life was unmanageable. He put his trust and confidence in a 12-step program, which literally saved his life.
They sent me to a Vista Recovery Center, and I talked to a guy named Mike Casey, and he told me I never had to do that again. Never had to feel the way I was feeling. And if I followed his directions, he would guarantee me that I would stay sober, clean and sober, for the rest of my life. It was real simple. But his program wasn't going to keep me sober. I said, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? He says, just follow my directions. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. He says, go to one of those. You know, we have a 30-day intensive phase. It's going to give you a lot of knowledge about your disease, but it's not going to keep you sober. He says, those places will. It's long-term sobriety. I told him, well, all I want to do is just quit drinking for a year and get my life back together and go back to doing what I was doing. He said, that's fine. He says, after a year, if you want your misery back, we'd be more than happy to refund it to you. So I went through that program. It was a 13-month program, and the first intensive phase was 30 days. It was really 20 days. 4 hours a day. I stayed working. It was real hard because I was real sick, because I didn't take nothing. Man, I was sick. And I was scared, man. I was sweating, and I was shaking. And, man, I felt like terror was on me. I couldn't sleep at night. Had trouble eating. Was throwing up. And my heart would pound out of my chest sometimes. You know, I'd sit in that meeting, man, and I'd be soaked. You know, and then get up the next day and go to work early in the morning. And I went to meetings on the weekends. I went to CA, AA, went to NA, tried them all out. I ended up staying at CA for quite a while. People in AA kind of scared me at first. They're real hard-nosed. People in Cocaine Anonymous was real early at that time. It was only started about a year or two. And the sobriety was real young. And I could relate to those people. I couldn't relate to the people that had a lot of time. I didn't believe anybody had a lot of time. Man, I didn't believe it. And I got a sponsor, and he told me I had to work these 12 steps. And he worked through them with me, you know, and it was just real simple. He told me it was simple. Just do it to the best of my ability. And guarantee me that I'd stay sober too. So I did. I followed his direction. You know, he told me my first step was out there. And I had to do it good. I had to know that I was an alcoholic and an addict. I had to have no doubts. 2 and 3 was hard. I hated God. I hated him with a passion. I blamed everything on him. If I couldn't blame it on people on this earth, I blamed it on him.
Guy had a change of heart when he entered the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. He was taught the promises in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells us we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. But as Guy says, you have to start somewhere. And a tree looks pretty good when you're first coming on the program.
Find a higher power. Use the group. And I did. I used the group. There's a whole bunch of people that weren't drinking and using, and I used them. I believed in their God. One guy told me he had a tree, and he believed into a tree, and I asked him why one day. He says, 'Cause I walked in that tree, and it didn't move, and I did. So I borrowed his tree. And that worked for me. All that stuff worked for me. And it worked real good.
You've been listening to The Bottom Line, featuring Guy's story. Guy, I know this was incredibly difficult for you to share your experience, strength, and hope, but this is a perfect example of what it takes and what it's like to be of service to another practicing alcoholic, or maybe someone that's in denial of alcoholism or drug addiction. This show is produced for Armed Forces Radio Worldwide. I'm Gary Thiemann. Until next time, God bless you, and share the message, won't you? This has been a GRT production.